with Gabrielle. Gabrielle. Help me, I can't even talk tonight.
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle or
Dinger.
Gabby Dinger. Forgive me for that. Jeez. I'm so
All
used
good.
to calling you Gabby. She went to Nichols University in Thibodaux, Louisiana for undergrad, and then Ole Miss in Mississippi for her graduate degree. And so we have been circling around each other for quite some time. I don't even really think we've got to sit down and like really chat much during the conference. So this is going to be nice.
Yeah.
We just got finished up with the National Conference on Contemporary Cast Iron and Art Practices. This was I can't that ninth, I think maybe I can't remember. I just go by the year. That seems right. But I just want to hear from you, sort of your background, how you got into art and iron casting, and sort of some of the, then sort of break down some of the bodies of artwork, because I know that we sort of focus on a lot of the very similar materials, including iron oxide and mark making with all of that and everything. So if you want to just sort of break it down and we'll keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Background as far as art goes, I've always been really interested in just making. Both my parents, my dad was casting pewter when I was a kid for
Oh,
like
nice.
D and different little game characters, and my mom was always painting, and she did a lot of craft stuff with me and my brother. So I've always had like this interest within like making things and creating. And it's funny, I think about it like when I got to, or when I was in high school, I remember thinking, I will never be a sculptor. Like we were reading on different artists and how they created things. And I was like, yeah, I can't sculpt. Like in my head, I was thinking it was like uh, carving with stone and, casting and all these things that
Right.
I was just very unfamiliar with. In my first year in grad school, I took a sculpture class, and I studied with Michael Williams, who it was like my second semester, and everybody had always talked about how terrifying sculpture was because you had to work, you had to use your hands.
Hmm.
And there was this moment when we were casting wax figures, and we had to find some found object within our home. And so I had this little like Iron Man action figure, and I brought it in, and I was making multiples of that wax figure. And one day Michael leans in and he goes, that would be cool in iron. And at that time they were getting ready for their second iron pour.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, like I was very terrified my freshman year. I just didn't know what was going on, and I was just trying to make and do. And I ended up learning how to cast it in iron, and had a lot of really great people that I was introduced to. And so from that point on, because I started off actually in art education.
Me too.
Really?
Painting and art ed.
Yeah, so I started off in art education, and I went the next semester without, sorry about the cat, went the next semester without taking a sculpture class. And I got invited to come help someone work on something within the wood shop. And after I helped him with that, and I also went to the next iron pour, I I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to change my focus to art, and I'm going to focus on sculpture. Like, I want to be a sculptor. And so, yeah, I just started from there. And then that was the same year. So in 2013, I was introduced to NCCC National Conference of Contemporary Cast Iron Art and Practices. So, and I don't remember, I don't think we met that year, because I remember hearing your name and seeing your work, and maybe we didn't meet until four
It was
conference.
2017 before I actually made it to a conference.
Okay, so yeah, that must have been the first year
Mm.
that we were introduced to one another. And even then, like you said, we've never. I remember seeing you from afar, and then like
You always run through. Do you have everything for your workshop? Are you good?
the what do you need? What do you got?
Yep.
So yeah, that's basically how I sort of got introduced into the cast iron world. And I really enjoyed that camaraderie that comes with it.
Mhm.
And meeting all these very interesting individuals who have these wonderful stories and seeing what they're creating and challenging and pushing
Right.
what can be made. So from there on, I don't know, as far as my bodies of work go, I started working with paper and textiles a lot in undergrad.
Mhm.
And it was at that point I realized I was a little bit nervous about welding. Obviously, things have changed since then, but I was just really interested in that material, and I forget exactly how I came upon rust printing, and I kind of got hooked because it was just so cool to see
Mhm.
like how these, how I could take something and get a different print each time depending on how it how it reacts within its environment, which I
Right.
thought was really wonderful and beautiful. So a lot of my work has been just an exploration of material, and I guess the ideas sort of come after or with it. I always kind of see myself as a more reactionary
Mhm.
artist, but
I totally agree with that because I feel like a lot of our work has similar veins. We have that very like southern flair to everything in our environment, but then it's also just sort of things that are around us, and we let our environment sort of dictate or direct us as we work.
right.
Um, I know I didn't even realize. I think it was the 2017 conference that I first was introduced to your iron oxide work. And then I invited you to the Traces of Beauty for the international, the one in Scranton.
Yeah, that
And
was an excellent exhibition, by the way.
thank
Thank
you.
you for allowing me.
I'm hoping to get a second, like, Traces of Beauty point two or something, 2.0.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully, once things calm down, I can find a gallery. We'll
Yeah,
do a reiteration of it because everybody's work has like shifted so much, or like it matured, or I don't know. It definitely changes every time that I see everybody's work with the materials. So it's really cool.
yeah, yeah, seeing that evolution of how. Oh, that was something I was thinking about. Well, you sat in on Kurt Deerhawk's
Mhm.
workshop for the conference, just because I had never had the opportunity. I had seen his work through the years, and I love the way that he treats his materials. And I've never had the opportunity to hear him speak about like the way that he paints with the iron oxide
Mhm.
and just other patinas. And so it was just really nice to sit there and hear these conversations that were happening within that, the questions that were coming of it, and seeing how he was addressing it. Because I think that's a lot of what makes the process so neat, is that we all are introduced to these ideas and we all experiment with the same thing, but sort of in that same vein where you can get a rust print and it's not going to be the same each time, right?
Right.
So you're all going to discover something new, and yeah, our work's going to mature and develop in wonderful ways. So
Hmm. For sure. Like with his using of the strings and everything to get the different textures under the gesso and all that's really cool.
yeah.
But with you, what do you primarily use? Do you use found objects? Do you cut things specifically for it?
It's been a little bit of both. So I don't know if you're familiar with that large rust print that I did. It's 9 foot by 12 foot.
Mhm.
And eventually I cut it in half because I realized I couldn't fit it in my Ford Focus, drive it back to Louisiana. But that piece, for example, was a mix of both. Like I was using giant sheets of steel that I was placing down and moving about, but I also had these pieces that I'd cut out for my sculptures that before I'd formed them and warped them or shaped them in any way, I would lay them down on there. So I had these forms that were cut out, sort of mimicking like geographic forms, but I also had these very rigid, linear, sheets of steel that were, standard in size. So it's been a mix of both. And my introduction to rust printing was just because there was a bunch of like cast iron objects in the back of our foundry at Nichols.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember Michael was like, hey, why don't you go, see what you can use out of there. And there was this really awesome giant ring. I don't know what it was for, but I made so many prints with it because I just loved that giant rusty circle.
Yeah.
So I can give that my what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically just been the inspiration for everything else. But yeah, no, it's been a mix of things. So
Nice. So I see a ton of instruments. I'm very interested and envious of your setup behind you because mine are currently like stowed away and hidden and stuff like that because I don't have a ton of space. But I knew you played ukulele, but well, why don't you tell me a little bit more about your instrumental side?
So I am not talented at all, but I am determined. So actually, I grew up, my dad was in several punk bands when I was a kid. So I've always just been really into music. And like my mom would play like her little records on the vinyl. And it would just be like these really awesome little moments of music that I remember, very diverse bits of music. And so when I got to junior high, I was in choir. So I learned how to read music. Terrible singer. I was an alto, didn't learn how to utilize my voice fully. And then when I got to high school, I had the opportunity to join band. So I was in color guard, but in the off seasons, I learned how to play the clarinet and the bass clarinet because I knew how to read music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always just been really interested in taking this object and creating sound. So a couple years ago, I decided like, if I'm going to learn how to play an instrument, it might as well be like ukulele. Like it's something small, chords are really simple to help with dexterity. And so I ended up buying like this really cheap, sad little ukulele. I'm actually gonna give it to my niece because I think it's time to retire it. But I kept practicing and kept going. And I'm just not very good at it, but I enjoy it. And I think that's something that's really important with it. Mm-hmm. So I have a baritone ukulele and I have a soprano ukulele, which are just fun to kind of go between. And then recently I bought a banjo because I thought that so that's on the list of things to learn. And I also bought a mandolin. And then I have a guitar and a keyboard, but I want to do everything. And so I don't know. I've been thinking about, actually, I just got in one of the Whitechapel books on sound because I've been thinking about just creating a body of work that revolves around sound and creating instruments that take up space, but also space within like this audio sense, because I'm really interested in doing that. I came to this moment where I haven't had the opportunity to make as much work as I was. But I think my outlet has been just trying to explore music more. So what instruments do you have?
I don't have my pianos up here. I have one at my parents' house and one at my aunt and uncle's, and that's what I was classically trained on.
Okay. Awesome.
But I have guitar, mountain dulcimer, hammer dulcimer, mandolin. I play my dad's banjo. Trying to think of, I have a baritone ukulele, a fiddle, and that's pretty. I mean, I have like ocarinas and flutes and recorders and stuff like that, but I am awful at wind instruments. I've never had that, like the armature or whatever that you have to have.
Brass is I keep looking at trumpets on like Facebook Marketplace and I'm like, you know that you're going to be terrible at that. Like you know you can't form your lips that way. But yeah, I love wind instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't realize, I know you can sing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize that you had such an awesome like arsenal of instrumental talent.
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've had time to songwrite or anything, but hopefully within the next year I'll be able to start carving out some more time for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, take a break and just pull it out, and maybe I'll have to call you up and we can,
Yeah, do a jam session.
you can suffer through me playing while you're like, no,
Right.
do it like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd totally be happy to show you a few tricks if I know anymore. I doubt it at this point because especially on the mandolin, I'm just for some reason the double string it
Mhm.
it drives me crazy. I can do slow picking on it, but I don't have the dexterity to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm still figuring that part out. I haven't picked it up in a couple of weeks, so I think maybe after our call I might pick it up and see what I remember. I did start picking up the guitar the other day though, and I found because a friend gave me the guitar, and it's been sitting there since I think I moved back in August, and I hadn't tuned it, I hadn't touched it. I've just been looking at it, and so
Uh-huh.
the other day I was like, you know what? Let me tune it and let me like try to play a couple chords. And so that was nice to just be like, okay, it's not so terrifying. Still don't have the dexterity, but I can manage. So
It's all about muscle memory and
yeah.
just like getting it under your fingers and then just hearing things. And I've always been awful at like hearing music, almost
Mhm.
like in my oral learning side is really, really bad. So um but Aaron, he'll play the bass with me some and sometimes I'll switch off on that. So that's fun.
That's awesome.
But you've been putting together some like diddly bows and stuff like that, like the single string or whatever with found
Yeah,
wood.
yeah, actually, I'll grab one real quick.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's gonna be. Um, but so I had this piece of cypress, a sunken cypress, because you're actually not supposed to cut down cypress trees in
Right.
Louisiana. Um, and so I had this piece of cypress, and the idea originally came like in undergrad. I was like, yeah, I'll just make. I want to make like instruments, but I thought it had to be like this really like profound idea, like had to be executed beautifully, which I still want it to be. Um, but I just like kind of steered away because I was like, I'm not very good at this. And so um, one day I was sitting in the house and I was looking at everything while I was unpacking, and I had the banjo strings because I had to replace one of my strings.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up buying a bunch of just like extra guitar parts. And so I put this together. And originally it was supposed to have, I don't know if you can see these little metal pieces. So this was from like a sculpture that I had cut up. And so I was putting them all throughout it. And I was going to have it to where it can set on those legs and then you can
Uh-huh.
play it. And I was gifted a slide. So eventually I want to put a pickup on there and like play it like a little slide
Nice.
guitar. But yeah, it's just three banjo strings, and I don't know what it's tuned to, but it's fun
Whatever
to.
sounds good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
So that's just been that was the second experimentation of what can I do with sound and materials. So um, yeah, so that's been really fun to work with. Have you ever explored any?
I started putting together, I was working on some stuff, like ceramic guitars.
Mhm.
And every time somebody's piece would explode next to it in the kiln,
Uh-huh.
and it would always get damaged. So I was never able to like really refine it.
Mhm.
And hopefully sooner than later I'll be able to figure out something. But I did start putting together a couple of like cigar box ukuleles and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But the fretboard, I think I just need to go fretless because the fretboard always like all those tiny little measurements. I am not a woodworker. I can build a crate, but that's about it.
That's the extent of it all. Well,
Funny.
so as far as like the ceramic guitar, is that the whole body, like the neck and everything is made out of ceramic, or
It's
is it just like
mostly the resonation
okay?
area. So it usually ends up I've from the YouTube videos and a couple of people I researched, it sounds a lot like a steel guitar.
Okay,
And you
cool.
can actually put water in it, just like a resonator, and
Uh-huh.
it makes different sounds like that. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. I'll have to look into that. Um, yeah, that would be awesome if if you ever had one that didn't get messed up in the kiln.
Right?
Um,
Yeah, I definitely want to get back into some ceramic work and everything. It's just sort of getting my studio space figured out and getting some materials at this point because I have plenty of places I can rent kiln time or whatever now. So
that's
just
awesome. Yeah,
gotta
you're in
find.
Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
You're originally from Georgia though,
Yep.
correct? Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
You should definitely talk to Kelly Cave. So I don't know if y'all have had much connection, but I'll send an email between the two of y'all because she does a lot of sound and sculpture work, whether it's like her sitting in chairs or like tapping on steel drums. The piece that she did for the Traces of Beauty was actually the rocking chair sections that were was on the and she had recorded it actually rocking on the wood
Yeah, I remember
planks.
that one.
So definitely talk to her. Trying to think who else. There was somebody else that popped into my mind while we were talking. If I remember it, I'll definitely let you know.
Awesome. No, I would appreciate that. Yeah, because it's a new I'm trying to I found a a website, or a friend recommended a website for just like music theory for beginners, because it's been a minute. And so I'm like, I might as well start from the beginning and learn the basics of this while I also explore the materiality of, combining these two. So,
Well, if you ever have any questions, I started teaching piano lessons at 14.
okay, awesome.
So I definitely can help you with music theory stuff.
That would be cool.
Just send a picture and be like, what's going on with this?
Why did this sound wrong? That would be awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you I, there was a couple of pieces of the cypress wood that I'm remembering that you had the strings on as well, but then you've been incorporating some with film, like
Mhm.
old photography film. Is that some that you're just collecting, or is it some that you have actually taken yourself?
It's film photo or film roles that I've taken myself.
Okay.
So the piece that I need to figure out. I don't know if that piece is done. It's sitting in my studio right now, and I'll walk in there and I'll kind of like look at it, and it'll look
Mhm.
at me, and we'll exchange some words, and then I walk out. But it's a piece that I don't know if I want it to be something instrumental. I haven't thought about it, but it does have cast iron and film. I enjoy taking photographs and documenting the world around me, experiences and moments, and the people within my life. And so I just like having my film camera with me. And that particular role for that piece was it was just all places, like when I had first moved back. So I had this piece of wood from Mississippi, but I had this film roll um, from the photos that I had taken here, but also the photos that I had taken in Mississippi. And then I had a piece of cast iron of film that I tried. It was just an experiment, and I wasn't expecting to get anything because it is so thin. But yeah, so it's like this conglomerate of things and places for me.
Nice.
Yeah. So
So with your work, is it a lot of, do you tie into like farther back memory, or is it mostly just like ephemeral in the moment and things around you, or do you bring in like your past and family heritage?
I I think in the beginning I started off exploring just like memory as like heritage and my own experiences from childhood on up. But my MFA thesis was actually just an exploration of like, especially because I ended up having to give my defense at the start of COVID, or at the
Oh,
start of the
you did too. I
yeah,
kind of remember that.
yeah. So it was sort of this weird, like, okay, like I'm making this body of work that's about just experiencing the moment and living within the moment. Because I've always been really interested in place and the experiences that we have in place. So that body of work sort of started off as going to places within my early adulthood up until this point, and just documenting these moments that I had and these experiences that I had. So it's not so much the full scope of like heritage and everything. I do think there's potential for that in the future, and maybe some other materials like some photographic work. I have some pieces that I've done that I'm still kind of thinking about what it means as a whole, and I'm not quite ready to share those pieces just yet. But for the work that I'm making now, it's a lot of just like the experiences that I'm having in this moment, and these memories that I create within my immediate life, and yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
With some of the ceramic pieces I've been seeing, are you using cyanotype on it with your photography, or is it a transfer for like some of the earrings and everything?
So I haven't done any with ceramics yet. I need to go get my wheel from my parents' house and set it up. Um, but for those pieces, I'm just printing the cyanotype on paper, and
Okay.
then I'm transferring it to wood. So, or not transferring it, but I'm adhering it to wood that I'm shaping, and then sealing.
For some
So
reason, I thought it was ceramics.
I feel like that would be so much easier than the process of staining and sanding, and oh, there's so much sanding. I'll just sit there and my fingers will be sanded because I'm just like,
Right?
get this. But no,
That
not yet.
burn that you feel while
Yeah.
you're trying.
Um, no, that is something that I want to explore. I've been doing cyanotype with my students, and it's always funny because I'm like, just trust the process. Because they're like, what are we doing? Like, they're like, why are the lights off? Like, what? And I'm like, okay, open the door. We're going to go put this out in the sun, And so, like, we'll go do it and then we'll rinse it. And they're like, oh, it's turning blue. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that wild? And so it's always just really cool to see how that, like, evolved for them. Like, how for the first one, it's just kind of like they're throwing stuff on there. And then for the second one, it's more thought out. And a lot of them have been, because we have a kiln at the school that I teach
Oh, wow.
at. And
What
so a lot
age group or grade level?
6th through 8th.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, which is just a really awesome age to teach. They're just really excited and still very curious. But yeah, so like a lot of them have been asking to do ceramic work, and so I'm like, maybe we can incorporate the two. But I haven't done it yet. So it's funny that you thought that was that is an endeavor though, just not yet.
Well, it will be cool to see where it goes for sure.
Yeah.
We definitely need to try to trade some earrings or something because I'm due for an update.
Well, I have a bunch of things that I need to mail out. So we can definitely make that happen. And I've got some earrings and some necklaces that I need to finish. So we can definitely.
Did you say you had an Etsy shop yet, or?
No, I don't know if I'll ever have it. Well, I had an Etsy shop at one point, but I don't keep up with that so much. Because it's not my full-time gig, So maybe one day I'll get back into that. But
I was gonna put it in the comments below, but I'll definitely link your Instagram and everything to it.
Cool.
As far as, because you're teaching art with the like junior high students, I know that was sort of my breaking point when I hit working with those levels. Like, I really enjoyed it during my community classes and like summer camp classes, but for some reason, public school, that was like the point where I was like, I can't do this. Right. What has been maybe one of the most challenging things that you've come up against? I mean, other than COVID, obviously, and maybe a triumph or something you'd like to celebrate?
As far as challenges go, I don't necessarily see them as like these problems of things that are like negative, right? It's like these things that we can solve, these things that we can, as you know, as they should be, like these things that we can move forward and we can learn from. So it's been partly because of COVID, like it's not hard to interact with the kids, but like I'm a very like expressionable person, you know. So that's because I actually, prior to this teaching opportunity and prior to grad school, I was teaching at an after school art program that was from age 4 on up to adult, you know. So I worked with a span of all ages, Monday through Saturday at that point. And so I got to experience like the 4 to 6-year-old age group, and then, you know, just I got to experience the whole realm, which, you know, each group has their own really wonderful things about teaching it, and they all have their own challenges, of course. So I would say that the challenge that has been for me is just learning how to explore what materials and mediums and ideas that the children want to work with. You know, because I might be really excited about painting, you know, but a child might want to do more sculpture work, which obviously I'm totally okay with. But I would say it's challenging just in the sense that there's not enough time, because I only see my kids 1 day a week for an hour. So I might introduce them to printmaking 1 week, and then, you know, we go on break the next week, and then I don't see them but for an hour the following week. And so just keeping that momentum going has been the challenging part, and making sure that if they're interested in something, that we latch onto that and we continue to explore that. As far as triumph goes, just seeing that moment when they do realize that they're interested in something, because I do allow them to come to me if, like, let's say they finish early in another class, they have an opportunity to come to me, and I don't mind that because they get to come make art, and I'm all for making art all the time. And so there's been a couple moments, or actually quite a handful of moments, where they come in and I just see like that spark in their eye, where they're just like, they're so excited about this process. And after, actually, I was doing a paper mache project with them. It was the second project, and I didn't think that a lot of them would want to stick with it. But there was one child who they made something, and then when they finished, they came in the next class, and I was like, well, what do you want to move on to next? And they're like, I want to make another one. And I was like, okay, let's do
awesome.
This. You know, so just seeing how they progressed within that process and their ideas with it. And some of them, they want to keep making, like I'm giving them sort of free reign for the last few projects. And I was amazed to discover that they still want to make sculptures, you know, because it is a really messy process, because we're doing flour and water. But so I would say that, yeah, that's probably just a really awesome moment, is when you realize that they found something that they love and they want to keep working with.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the summers that I did community art classes, I was trying all kinds of things, and they were super interested in, it was like maybe 4th to 5th grade, I don't know, but they were definitely rounders. They kept me on my toes. And there was 3 guys in there, and they wanted to know everything about fire, and we ended up making molds of their hands using the plaster gauze. I brought in some silicone mold stuff. We started melting down aluminum cans outside. Probably totally against every rule possible, but it was fun. And I think I kept them out of trouble for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you introduce them to, I think that's such a, I mean, we're all curious, right? Like, how do these things happen? And a lot of times we don't realize, especially at that age, like how some things become. And so when they're introduced to these processes, especially casting aluminum at that age, it's kind of like, wait, you can take this and make that, you know? So that's really awesome that, you know, you got to put, if I could, I would totally, and maybe that might be a future endeavor, but like where, you know, it's out of my own studio, but like just teaching like forging and, you know, metal casting. Of course, I need to make my own furnace,
Right.
but, you know, just having those opportunities so that it's open to more people and so that they can see and experience and get people hooked earlier, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, like those kids that just want to know everything about fire.
Right. That's the ultimate goal, is to be able to like fix out a studio where we can start doing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that other people have that plan too, because I sort of want to have like a co-op studio or something where like most all the material or like equipment's mine and people can come in and use it, and sort of just if they need studio space and stuff like that. So long time from now, but slowly getting there, baby steps.
It's all you need is just keep moving forward, baby
Yeah.
steps.
So how has it been since I know I've been struggling with post grad like blues and like giving up some of my art work because that was really all I ever did.
Right.
And then coming into like the post grad situation, and like probably with education you were able to step into it pretty easy, but it took me a good 6 to 8 months before I was able to find any sort of part-time job. So
Mm-hmm.
how has that experience been for you, like with exhibitions and just
It was, so you graduated in May
May
as well,
2020?
correct?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so we were at the same time. Um, it's so I just with quarantining, because in Mississippi, I was essentially like, you know, I was at the house and I was working on my thesis. I had transformed one of our rooms into my studio. So I was still had this opportunity to make stuff, but I wasn't able to weld like I had before. And I had just gotten interested in TIG welding, which is so awesome for tiny things, you know,
It
because
is.
I used to tack weld stuff with the MIG welder and then have to go back in and chase the, you know, the big old bead. And then, you know, so TIG welding was just like this really awesome thing. And then I wasn't able to utilize that space.
Right.
So it was sort of this weird transition for me where I just sat in front of the computer. I worked on my thesis. You know, I typed and got prepared to move because I was at that point, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And I feel very fortunate that I do have this opportunity to teach. You know, because it's ironically, it's what I started off in school for in undergrad 10 years ago. But, you know, just as far as my own personal artwork goes, I wasn't really applying to exhibitions, unfortunately. I did have the opportunity to go back to the University of Mississippi and install my work.
Nice.
They let me do that in October,
That's
but you know, I
very
didn't have
good.
the reception or you know, all the camaraderie. Though I did have a bunch of wonderful people help me install it. But just as far as like making work, I was just so focused on trying to adjust my life. Um, you know, learning this new job and also navigating just how I was surviving within the pandemic. And you know, like I don't, other than like going and camping or whatever, like I don't really leave my household that much other than going to work. Um, so it was, you know, sort of just this weird, like, I don't know what to make. I don't really have the space to make because I just want to, I have all this metal, but I can't weld it. And so I've done a lot more watercolors, some more drawings, not as frequently as I like to, but, and more photography too. You know, I've got my film cameras. And so I just printed out some of those works. And so I want to start exploring that a little bit more, but I haven't been as proactive as far as navigating. But earlier today, before our call, I was looking at just artist calls because I do need to be more active about that. Just this past week with the conference, you know, it made me miss. It was just like this nice little cheer up moment to be like, okay, like I can do this and I can get back into making and doing and applying to things. So That's sort of where I'm at with it. But yeah, it's definitely been a weird, would you say like 8 months for you? I would say, yeah, probably close to the same, just not really. I feel also very fortunate that you reached out to me about doing this still. So, um, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I'm just, now I'm finally able to collect my head and get my feet
Right.
down again. So,
Yeah, I think we got thrown so far with the loop, like with the whole pandemic thing and like that on top of everything else. I was like, this is probably the closest thing that I'm ever going to come to postpartum or anything because like our whole support system and like the world that we knew was just yanked out from under us. So
right, right.
everything that we had envisioned as far as like our final exhibition, I had to do it in our garage.
Right. Was
So,
the chair with the strings?
uh-huh.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting piece. Like I was just, you're utilizing the space, which I think has been one of the really fascinating things that's come out of, we're removing the white walls of the gallery
Hmm.
and we're exploring the spaces that we do have. So I thought that was a
Yeah.
really captivating piece of yours.
Thank you. I definitely I've got a couple of things sort of in the works to start installing like in the park here in town and
Mm-hmm.
some stuff because I feel like that's probably where my work, especially after the Coke band installation at Sloss in 2019, it was just like everything just fell into place. It just felt right, you know?
Yeah, doing more public works.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
just like pop up installation stuff. Because I had in undergrad, I had tried to do a couple of pieces like that. And I think that they were still so like material wise and stuff, they were very removed from the environment
Mm-hmm.
instead of being, and I want to be more like inclusive and sort of, I guess, Andy Goldsworthy or whatever, like it sort of looks natural, but it's not sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. Well, and I enjoyed your piece for the Coke Band exhibition. That was, just this really, because what were those naturally dyed or rust printed? But yeah, just this very like the movement of it within the space that's so industrial. I thought that was again, a really beautiful piece.
Thank you.
So,
I went on to create a sound piece to accompany it, which I called Memories or Whispers from Sloss. And it was like the sounds and everything that I just collected while I was there, and then some that I found on the internet to recreate, like wind chime sounds, the bird sounds, wind, the trains passing by, and stuff like that. Just that ambiance that you can't, unless you've been there, you don't understand. So that was fun. I was able to install that Shepherd last spring, like last March, right before my thesis show. So that was fun.
that's really cool. And I want to ask, you poured with them this past week, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
How
I
was
helped
that?
out. Okay,
That's really cool.
that was wild. I really didn't get to see much of Kay's side of stuff. Like I saw the setup and everything, and I know that was running on Twitch, but we were very, you know how iron pours go. It was very
Yes,
insular in our own thing.
yeah.
The furnace ran great working with Paige and Rihanna from Carrie Furnaces
Mhm.
was really great that they were able to come down. Nikki Moser was there. She drove
Yeah.
down from Maine, and just our usual crew. And it just this was the first time I've done a nighttime pour in I don't know, probably since 2015.
Hmm.
And so just having that opportunity to really like enjoy the sparks and I mean we had enough light to where yeah, but especially just like some crews you can't dance with,
Mm-hmm.
It's very stilted, or you have to be commanded to do something. Like there's that hierarchy, but
Mm-hmm.
for some reason the meld of that crew mixed with like what we already have at Shepherd with Alyssa and Christian and everybody, it just it flowed and it
Mm-hmm.
was really really nice.
Yeah. Well, and you just speaking just now made me realize I don't think we've ever poured together.
I don't think so, no.
We need to make that happen. We need to
Yeah. We do.
pour with Christian, or I remember because I don't know if you, I think Alyssa took part in it, but I remember they were casting for the international when
Mm-hmm.
we were on the train, and that was just, it seemed like we're
Oh
just a really,
yeah, I was with Jeremy Entwistle, Christian at the Strasbourg, I think.
mhm. Yeah,
But yeah,
one of the stops.
Paige
Um,
was on that pour too.
yeah. So yeah, and I think I was just sort of learning everybody at that. I still feel very new within the cast iron community, but it's always just been really wonderful to see these people from afar through the years, and then to be able to sit down and
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation. So
Yeah,
yeah, we need to pour. We need to make a.
definitely. I know that I need to get down to Mississippi and Louisiana area, like visit Kristen and a bunch of people, because I really haven't went west of Alabama in that area. Like I've went out to Arizona, but I haven't been in that
That's
like
way out west.
yeah. I went for the Western conference in 2016.
Okay. Yeah, I was invited and I didn't get the opportunity to go
I
to that.
know.
But it seemed like a really great conference. I went to the Western for that happened in Missouri, which was really
Nice.
fascinating. Um, but yeah, no, you should come on down. I've got a spare room and I got cats,
Sweet.
and you can play some instruments and we can pour some metal. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that'd be great. How many cats do you have now? I know you have the one.
Well, so I have my my OG Smoky
Hmm.
Mountain. And then I was fostering this cat. I started fostering her in January, and she's a kitten, maybe 8 months. Well, maybe 8 months now, 9 months probably. But I didn't realize she was pregnant when I took her in to foster. Until one weekend I got home and I looked at her and I was like, no, it's like, you're going to have kittens. So she had five, and they're really sweet. They're precious. They're so fun. I'll just go and lay on the floor when I'm having like a really long, stressful day, and they just run around and they'll chew on me, and they're funny because they're just playful. So now I have seven. They're looking
Wow.
for moms. I will deliver. But yeah, no, they're great. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So you heard Shadowbird earlier. She was
Tearing
fussy.
down stuff just like
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I forgot that she knows
I'm
how to.
surprised mine hadn't. They've been rather quiet, so it's got me worried
How many do you have?
too.
Two. Okay, yeah. What was it when we were on a call last week? I saw one of them in your curtains, and I was like,
Oh yeah. Usually they're all in my lap or somewhere beside me or behind me. And
yeah,
it's
yeah. I'm surprised Smokey's not with me right now. He loves the keyboard, so that's been his main place.
but we definitely need to get that the whole crew of us was roller skates together, because like me, you, Kelly Wilton, Jam. I can't think of who else, but
Kelly is
everybody was.
amazing. Have you seen? I mean, she's a
Mm-hmm.
derby roller. But yeah, she's been doing the skate daily thing, and it's been awesome to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she'll just bust these moves, and I'm like, I just bust my butt. Like,
Yeah, pretty much. As long as I'm staying up, and
uh-huh.
I don't, because I had intended to start doing derby, and of course the area COVID shut everything down as soon as I had time. So now I'm like, I just need to find somebody to trade or purchase my skates and get like high tops, because me trying to do my ice skating moves and derby skates.
You did ice skating?
I taught myself quite a bit, and we
Awesome.
would get, since I was homeschooled, we would have activity days and stuff, and so we would go roller skating and ice skating a lot. So I can bust a couple moves, sometimes my butt.
Yeah, the last time that I went to like a skating rink, I had sprained my tailbone.
Oh no.
And so and that was like 6 years ago. Um, and I remember crying in front of like this group of kids, and I was like, I don't know if I can ever roller skate again. But I decided to pick up a pair a couple of years ago, and it was just fun to like roll around the house, and like I would grab the ukulele and like roll through and like try to play something and like focus. So that's as far as I got. I'm not at the level that you are or that Kelly is, and I'm sure Jam is probably just as amazing.
With her custom yellow.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Those are really cool.
Well, I'm going to let you sign off. We have definitely covered a lot of ground tonight, and I really appreciate you hopping on. But go enjoy your evening, and we shall chat much sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity. It's been great to speak with you.
Absolutely.
Not just about like, do you have this? Do you need this? You know, but just to have a conversation's been really nice. And like I said, I've got a guest bedroom and I've got cats and I've got instruments, and you're always welcome. So
really appreciate it. Thank you so much.